Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hello, welcome, welcome. Once again, we're delighted to be with you for today's show, in which we're going to be sharing with you the meaning of the current and upcoming energies, looking both through the astrological matrix and through human design. I'm Carola Eastwood.
And I'm Chetan Parkin.
And hopefully most of you already know us, but for those of you who are new, we welcome you. We are Evolutionary Human Design, and we're producing today's broadcast to illuminate for you both the remarkable and yet challenging planetary movements through astrology and human design for the remainder of October and the upcoming month of November. And once again, if you're new to our community, this is a broadcast that we produce once a month to show you the energies that we're in as we're producing and then looking ahead at the month ahead. It's a complimentary broadcast. You can invite anyone you like, and we welcome you to join us every month if you like. So before we get into the interesting and complex energies of this coming month, first a brief announcement. So for those of you who may not have seen our email, this is your last chance in the last few days to join us for our Human Design Training Series. And it has with it a remarkable bonus of a personal one-to-one human design session with Chetan. You don't want to miss this. If you want to learn human design, this is the time to join us. Take advantage of that personal one-on-one time with him. And you can check it out. Go take a look at it at our website, evolutionaryhumandesign.com. Navigate to the trainings tab and then drop down to Human Design Training Series, HDTS. But do hurry, because this the last few days. Monday actually will be the last day. So Monday at the end of the day, midnight, to take advantage of this special. And then also, just so you know, a little bit of preview of coming attractions. On Tuesday next week, we're going to be launching our early bird special for our energies and opportunities of 2026. And that will be coming up next week. So we're broadcasting today here on October 25th, Saturday. Delightful to be with you. We're going to back up our research a little bit, and instead of starting with today, we're going to go back to the new moon that we just had on October 21st and start there. We'll go through the remainder of October, and then we'll look at the entire month of November. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we might call it the Diwali new moon, where in India and in all those communities, it's the festival of lights. And you cannot imagine how many lights or candles or oil burners are lit, and in beautiful patterns and great ceremony. And just to see, in the darkest of dark times, there's always that possibility of finding the light. And so that new moon, that moment in which the sun and the moon are right together in the sky, is a very consequential moment in time. And we know we're in consequential times at the moment. So what I perceived happening in that moment in time was the sun was in the hexagram number 50, which is the hexagram we call the ding, the cooking pot, the cauldron. And it's the gateway and the hexagram of values that sustain the community. So very, very important hexagram in the I Ching. The ding is the Chinese word for it, and I had to practice it over and over again to say it the right way, is a great cooking pot. And this cooking pot is outside of every temple in China and Japan. You'll see it's an enormous bronze, three-legged cooking pot with two handles and a lid. And in times of plenty, when everything's going well, then that cooking pot is full up with sand or ash, and people put their incense sticks in it and give thanks or make prayers and supplications for the benefit of their world. When everything goes to pieces and the world falls apart and there is pestilence or famine or some kind of war situation going on, everyone dumps out the sand and the ash out of the pot, clean it up, and cook food for the whole community. It's an enormous possibility. So the symbolism here is this sustaining values. The pot is kept there through thick and thin. In some ways it serves one way, and in another way it serves another time. And so it's just that reminder for all of us that our values, our community values, the fact that we have community around us, so important. And so this new moon took place while the sun and the moon were both together in this 50th hexagram. And in the third line of that, and I'll just read to you what I've written about that particular line. The line is called clarifying, being clear that you recognize and honor your own true values first. Right? Honoring your own values, you receive the support you need. And it's just that really important thing to recognize, to honor your own values. What are the values that are essential for you in life? And just to see the values involve being connected into the community around you. At the same time, we all, by transit, had the activation between the 3 and the 60. And those of you familiar with human design, this channel is the channel we call mutation. And mutation is a very transformational channel. And it basically indicates Pluto is holding up one end of it. Pluto doesn't mess around. It says if there's going to be a change, get ready for it. And the Earth is in the other end of it, in the 3, the gate of innovation. And so all of us have had this connection from the 19th of the month, and it goes all the way through until the 25th of the month, actually until it wraps up today. And just to see all of us are subject to this massive shift, like the earth moving under our feet in a way, and things of consequence taking place. So just to be aware that this new moon has brought about a lot of recognition. What is it that's really important to me? What are the values that I really stand by through thick and thin? You know, in times of plenty and times of hardship, what do I stand by? And just to hold to that and to recognize that. And I'm not going to say this, the rest of this month and November is going to be the easiest of times. We're going to have our values challenged. And the most important thing always is to come home to oneself and find out what's the truth inside me, what's really, really important. We go on for a few days. Venus and Mars and Uranus have an interaction. They open up this channel of 5720, another very transformational channel. And we may find ourselves saying things that we're not used to saying, that we get an intuition of some sort, and all of a sudden, there it is, we're expressing it. And this energy goes on through the end of the month. For a day on the 27th, the sun and the moon have another very particular connection. They've gone through the new moon, and then they open up this channel of 2838, which is the channel of sticking to your truth, to not be pushed off into somebody else's appreciation of what life is. It's almost like there's something where you recognize the world around you is completely crazy. Everyone's following some ridiculous precept of what's supposed to happen. And the 2838 just says, maybe not. Maybe I'm going to stand my ground on this one. And it's just, you know, as we end up this month and we go into Halloween and beyond, you know, where we connect again, or Halloween, the All Hallowed Even, where we connect into the spirit world again, or we're reminded to do that. Let's just say this last week of the month of October, precious time to be reflecting on what it is that's so truthful for us, and what are our values when it looks like everything's gone to pot. You know, what do we hold on to? What do we recognize as significant to see these times through?
So it often just surprises me at how much the themes shown in human design are also reflected in astrology in a bit of a different way. But yes, I mean, I looked at, you know, what could I say would be the keynote for this time specifically, starting at the new moon that happened 4 days ago on October 21st. The new moon, through the astrological lens, happened at the very last bit of 28 degrees of Libra, so new moon in Libra. And what I would say is the keynote for this new moon, which is the beginning of a new 30-day cycle, the keynote is integrity. And it's about integrating higher principles into the way we're living. So we have this powerful new moon that happened on October 21st. But in the milieu of the entire planetary dance all around us is a enormous, big grand triangle in the sky between Jupiter, the planet of growth and expansion, the planet that can bring great benefit through growth. And it's in the sign of Cancer, which is about nurturing, caring for the community, making sure that our needs are met. It gives us an opportunity, this big grand triangle with Jupiter and several other planets, which I'll name in a minute, gives us an opportunity to expand our capacity for both giving and receiving support, to be generous and to allow ourselves to receive generously and with appreciation, and to deepen our connection with spirit. I say that because Jupiter is in a flowing aspect with both Neptune, which it would be our higher spiritual nature, but also this flow and this commitment to this generous new expression is about committing to new rituals that will help us to anchor those values in our life. So that's the Saturn part of this beautiful flowing energy. So we've got that high inspiration with Neptune, and we've got Saturn saying, take that high inspiration and bring it into some kind of ritual, some kind of daily process or experience that you can return to in order to stay in touch and in tune with the values that your soul is calling you to, or the values you could say that you really resonate with. So we're looking a lot at our values during this time. We also have some challenging aspects in this, period of time, the last bit of October, along with those huge opportunities and big opportunity cycles in terms of new ways that we might express our work in the world, how we might communicate ourselves or connect ourselves into our environments. I mean, it's like the creative doors are just flying open, but at the same time, we have all this opportunity, all this new possibility emerging, saying, be certain that you're grounded in your values and that's where you're coming from in expanding yourself into all different directions that may be available to you. But also, there's a crisis of action at this point in time. So when I say this point in time, starting at the new moon on October 21st and going all the way to the first quarter moon, and that's on October 29th. So this very last part of October, the crisis of action, it's about the healing that's needed in our times, in our social milieu that we find ourselves in. The transformation that needs to come from recognizing the principles that must guide our actions. So instead of just taking random actions or just responding or relating to our environment, what are those principles that we're grounded in and we're clear about that are our base? And those principles then guiding our actions. And once we align that, then we have more access to the huge opportunities that this big grand triangle gives us. And interestingly, this big opportunity cycle, it provides a backdrop for the entire next 5-6 weeks. So very, very exciting time. That takes us through the end of October, from my perspective.
So as we go into November, instantly we start out with this viewing that the planet Uranus it's in retrograde motion, so it's going backwards from our perspective here, but in these next years, it's going through all of the gates in the throat center. And these gates are in that quarter of the wheel that we describe as the quarter of civilization. So all kinds of, what can I say about Uranus? It brings these breakthrough possibilities, these sudden expressions of things that can completely change everything around us. And we can see it's having a huge effect on technology at the moment, as it has done every 84 years. That's the time of its orbit. If you go back 84 years, we're talking about the beginning of World War II, where the world all of a sudden was taken over by people that were insane. And there is that same possibility at this time, that the people that are insane are running the show, or supposedly running the show. And so we have this opportunity in this time to just see, are we going to play the same game over again? Or are we going to do something in a slightly different way? Are we going to direct the insanity in a way that's different? You know, So we open up the month of November with Uranus in the 20th gateway, the gateway of now, present tense, and we have Mercury in the 34th. So we have this channel being very busy about things. And, just this goes on for the best part of a week into the month of November, just being really busy and expressing things or being shaken by expressions of things in ways that can really unsettle us if we're not careful. And then sure enough, come the 5th of the month, we have a full moon. So we started out with a new moon in the 50th gate where you use the word integrity. I use the word of, really tuning into the values that are essential for us. And then we come to this full moon where there's this radiance of possibility. And that, to me, this full moon, it's in one of these magical placements in the wheel. It's in the second gateway, which is the most yin, the most receptive of all the hexagrams in the I Ching. It's the one where we can open up and get a whole new sense of direction in life. It's the orientation gateway. Just be receptive. What's the universe trying to tell us? Where's it wanting to take us? Not only in the second gateway, but in the first line of that particular hexagram. And it's a line that I call crystal vision. Crystal vision, where something is so pristine and clear. There's no question about any kind of fogginess or anything else about it. It's just, you get it. Full moon. Receptive to guidance that accords to the beauty of existence. Sometimes we totally forget, we're living in this magical place, this planet Earth. I don't know where one gets one's information from, but I understand if I read about anything else going on anywhere in this universe, planet Earth is something really special. We've been, all right, there's a few 3D trials here going through stuff, but the place around us is absolutely extraordinarily beautiful. And we have this opportunity with the full moon just to really tune into that again, to remind ourselves how incredible this experience is. We don't have to be fighting with each other. We don't have to have that attitude of competition the whole time. We're here to have a very rich and full and fulfilling lifetime. And so that full moon really gives us that flavor on the 5th of the month. And I just encourage everyone, be out for the full moon. Get outdoors and embrace that full moon and see what it's trying to tell you. The spheres have music. And shortly after that, the sun goes into the first hexagram, goes into the life theme we call the Sphinx. And so the Sphinx, there's this structure in Egypt, what is now Egypt, and there's this structure, the Sphinx, nobody knows how old it is. It's beyond any kind of history book that was ever written. And it's facing the same way, and it's faced that same way forever. It aims towards the Sirian star system. There's definitely a message there for all of us. And so when the sun goes into this number 1 gateway and opens up creativity, Uranus is on the other end in the 8 line 6. And so for that second week in the month of November, we have this channel, the 1-8. Again, a hugely transformational channel. So these transits that we're having since this new moon, they're all transformational. We enter into you may think, well, nothing much is happening, but actually, when you go through a transformation, there's no going back. You can't tread back in the same river again. You can't redo the same thing over. And so we have this tremendous push to be busy, to be active, to be watchful of what it is that's being expressed, but to hold true to our values, the values that we see as important for us, the ones that sustain. And then we see ourselves with this whole creative leadership that's possible. And creative leadership is always going to go outside of the rail system. It's always going to go outside of, the right way of doing things. It's always going to find some new way through. There's a classic expression for the 1-8 channel, this channel of creative leadership, is you build the plane on the way up. You invent or you find how to use the creativity to make things work as you engage with them. Because creativity always has an open-ended possibility. It has an ongoing creativity behind it. So we enter into this month of November with this tremendous push to look at our life in a very different way, to remember the beauty of the world that surrounds us, to remember the beauty of each other, that the people we get to play with in our life, for goodness sakes. I mean, who invented this thing? And just to really recognize the importance of being sovereign in our way of doing things, to be creative, to be transformational, to be allowing ourselves to let go of things that don't work for us anymore and to move forward. Because, Carol and I, we sat together for a few days, kind of mulling over what's 2026 all about. We think 2025 has been tumultuous. It has.
It has been.
But it's just getting warmed up. So, we have to let go of things that don't serve us anymore and allow ourselves to move into transformation.
We have to birth a new consciousness before the new time. That's essentially what's being asked of us.
And a new consciousness has to let go of the old stuff, the old belief systems, the old habits, the old reactions. Yeah. Precious time.
Yeah.
So what do you see?
Well, what I see is much similar. I'm going to go back to October 29th. So right at the end of this month, we started out with the new moon, because the new moon begins a new cycle, a new 30-day cycle. And we saw that new moon happened at the very last little bit of Libra, 28 degrees of Libra. So the sun then moved on, and it's now firmly in Scorpio. When the sun goes through Scorpio for 30 days, essentially the journey, humanity's journey, all of us will be experiencing to some degree or another a symbolic inner kind of death and rebirth. So something old, something no longer viable, something no longer valuable, we need to let go of that and step into something new. So the process of transformation, we're moving towards something higher, something lighter, something perhaps better or new. And in order to do that, we need to let go of the old. So that's really the challenge of the time. And that challenge gets highlighted at the first quarter moon that happens on October 29th. So just coming up in a few days here. The first quarter moon in the sign of Aquarius conjunct the very powerful planet of Pluto. And Pluto happens to be Scorpio's ruling planet. So we have a strong, sort of double impact around this Scorpio process of inner transformation, letting go of the old, birthing the new, awakening to new possibility. Some of us, maybe many of us, have been going through and experiencing a bit of a time of real financial challenge. And certainly America has been in this state with the government shutdown and all this sort of nonsense going on in the political world. But, it's affecting many people. And what I can say is that energetically, we see the planet Venus is what we look to when we look at finances and, money flow. And Venus, although it's been in its own home sign of Libra, it has been in some very difficult aspects. It's been a bit fallow. It's been difficult for us to have a sense of financial flow. So these financial challenges are actually coming at a time to catalyze healing. And they're catalyzing healing of our sense of self-value, self-worth. We're, in a technology revolution of huge proportions. And it's happening so rapidly that we're having, perhaps a bit of trouble sort of keeping up with it all. As we go into the first quarter moon, Venus is going to then make some aspects. So at least they're not easy aspects, but it's going to catalyze us into some sort of a movement with our sense of value, our sense of monetary well-being and that sort of thing. So we take some actions. And the actions have to do with bringing ourselves up to speed with how the world is moving now, and especially how money's flowing now, how we attract money to us, how do we attract everything of value to us? And recognizing that we are the force, the magnetic force that attracts all well-being to us. So learning that is possible in this time. It's a time of huge healing of our whole sense of well-being and our own sense of worth and value. So powerful time to be awakening. It's an awakening. Another thing that's awakening at this first quarter moon, as Mercury leaves the sign of Scorpio on October 29th, or October, probably did it on the 28th actually, then moves into Sagittarius. When Mercury moves into the sign of Sagittarius, it then opposes Uranus. So what does this all mean? So Uranus is the planet of awakening to higher states of consciousness. And Mercury is the planet that has to do with communicating. So what we're being called to do is awaken in ourselves a new capacity to communicate, bringing our communications up into a fifth dimensional vibrational frequency, which necessarily has to be in alignment with in vibratory frequency with truth, speaking our truth, hearing other people's truth, resonating to that truth, following that truth, not just as an interesting conversation, but as a commitment to action. So we still have this big, huge grand trine flowing in the sky. We've got Jupiter expanding our sense of what's valuable, what's worthy, what nurtures us, and how we can nurture our world. We've got Jupiter extending the possibilities of different things, new things that we can do in our work life, or our business life, our communities, our way of communicating. We're awakening our capacity to hear and feel and sense the soul essence that we are is getting more and more refined. Throughout this entire month, coming up this entire month of November, we're going to be feeling this and moving towards that greater heightened sensitivity and heightened awareness that's requiring a higher level of integrity from all of us.
I talked about the full moon in the first week of November, and it just reminding again, we live in an extraordinary planet. We have these extraordinary bodies that take us around the place to have these experiences. And it's a really important thing to remember how beautiful the world can be. Yes, there's a bunch of confusion. There's a lot of noise going on. There's a lot of crazy things still happening. And I know we're going to be broadcasting through social media to a large part of it, but one has to be really careful about social media, because mostly it's all about comparisons. You know, people will show themselves in their best light and, you know, forget about the time when they're not so bright and wonderful. And so it's a very important thing to remember that it's easy to get depressed by whatever it is people like to broadcast, that their life is so much better, or they're doing so many more exciting things than you are.
Or even the news.
Oh, yes. So I'm putting that out at the moment. Of course, it's important to stay informed on some level, but just there's an awful lot of trivia flying around as well. And the beginning of November is all about claiming our transformational ability, claiming our creativity, moving into that very, very different space, and remembering, you know, the beauty of it all, the beauty of interacting with each other in very clear ways, the beauty of recognizing when we're so in tune with our own life. Because there's that thing of so easily getting distracted into other people's sense of importances. So I talked about the Sphinx, that energy of the sun going into the first hexagram. And in a sense, it's a significant moment when the sun goes into the number one hexagram, because all the way for the last 6 months, we've been in the yin season, if you will, that every hexagram has had a broken yin line at the bottom of it. And when the moment we hit hexagram number 1, all of a sudden everything goes yang. And yang is, the outgoing, the male, the extrovert, the push to be involved. So we're entering into a very different season from the 5th of November. And we start out with the Sphinx, where we kind of realign ourselves in our course, that we get our bearings again. And the full moon adds to that bearing and saying, look, take the beauty of the world around you with you as you're getting these new bearings. On the 9th, the sun goes into the 5th line, and we enter into this life theme of defiance. Well, the sun is in creativity, but the life theme is defiance. And the defiance is, are you living your own life, or are you just kind of mirroring everybody else's stuff? What I've come to appreciate is that, yes, we can think we're living our own life, and then kind of find out, well, actually, I've compromised myself in so many different ways according to things I've been told or the belief systems that have been handed down to me. And we really are moving into a different time. We're moving out of the age of the collective. We're moving out of the age of borrowed knowledge. I mean, it's quite clear that libraries are still full of books, but who's reading them? Floor to ceiling, building to building books, and they're just sitting there. And the internet has now said, all right, we'll just get the ChatGPT to go through everything and filter out whatever we need for anything in particular. So we're moving out of that age of knowledge. We're moving out of that age of information, where the collective has always had the last word on things. The justice system or the religion system or whatever has had the last word on things. This is how it is. And we can just tell these systems are breaking down. The judicial system is like it has lately been whoever's got the most money wins the case, and whoever's got the most influence wins the case, and it's just we're watching these things come unglued. And so what happens next is we have to stand in our own truth. We have to be sovereign in our own nature. We didn't come here to be somebody else, and we didn't come here to follow somebody else, toe somebody else's line in life. And so I get really quite excited when I see the channels that show up in Human Design by Transit are all individual channels. They're all creative channels. They're all innovative channels. They're breaking the mold channels. And honestly speaking, in this time where technology is literally taking over, the machine is taking over in so many different ways in our lives. Where's the consciousness? And as Carola said, this is a time where we literally have to birth a new consciousness. And it's an inside job. There's no training for this. It's just that recognition inside. I have to be sovereign in my life. I have to live according to my own life. And so we enter into the defiance, and the very next thing on the 11th of the month, the sun goes into the 43, and we have another channel, the 4323, individual expression. And at the same time, Mercury does a retrograde, Jupiter does a retrograde, and I'll talk about that. But I'm going to let Carola talk about the full moon, because there's a lot to be said here.
It's a very, very powerful full moon. I think this full moon is going to be closest to the Earth or something, so it should be huge and vivid in the sky, for one thing. It happens on the 5th of November, full moon in Taurus, opposite the sun in Scorpio. And it really catalyzes changes and big transformations that have been brewing for a number of months. Those of us that are sensitive to it, we've probably been feeling it building up. It's coming now in November to a time for action. So it's kind of decision. It's a decision point. It's a time to be decisive and take action. And how do we know which actions are going to be the ones that are going to be the most beneficial for us, or the say right ones, the right path? Well, we know that through having our capacity to go to our clarity, to go to our inner clarity, and be guided from that place of hearing the voice, you could say, or the guidance of our soul essence. Several of these channels that are coming in early November are specifically channels that are about feeling the pulse, hearing the voice of that element that is our capacity to tune in to our higher self, our soul essence. So that's really the only solution to these times is the only solution to the challenge of the times that we're in is evolution, is evolving, is in our consciousness and our awareness, is transforming and going to a higher frequency of consciousness. That is what's happening, even though it looks messy, and it still, I would say, continues to look messy throughout this full moon, although there are this huge grand triangle in the sky is still happening. It's like the biggest blessing that we could imagine. It's a huge blessing. And at the same time, one of the biggest crises that we've ever experienced. And they're happening simultaneously. So it's like it's like the pressure of all this opportunity calling us at the same time these challenges happening is just squeezing us to the point where we just have to let go and allow ourselves to awaken and live our life from an entirely new place, which is what we're being called to. So we're going to have challenges to our financial value system, and they're going to bring catalytic changes to our way of understanding our value. And then at the same time, we're going to have a big shakeup in how business transactions are going to happen in the coming times. So this could look like, moving to a different form of monetary exchange, or a new currency, or cryptocurrency, or we don't know what it's going to look like yet, but we can see these changes brewing. Some of the old ways of exchanging value are no longer going to be viable for us. This full moon is going to bring that out on November 5th, full moon in Taurus, which is the sign that's about values, opposite the sun in Scorpio, which is the sign that's about transformation. So here we are, a huge, deep, and profound transformation of values that we're being called to step into, to embrace, and to integrate into our understanding and our way of being and our way of moving forward in our life. So big transformation time, also huge opportunities, the opportunities for growth in terms of our spiritual awareness. We're getting more and more and more able to connect with the divine, to hear that voice of the divine, and to merge our energy in a way with that which is divine within us and that which is divine within all of us. So touching into the sublime and the divine is the other thing that's possible, and bringing our way of working and our way of engaging and our way of relating into that higher frequency is the work of this month, and especially going to be catalyzed during this full moon on November 5th.
So I move forward to the 11th of the month, and the sun goes into gate 43, the gate of breakthrough, the gateway of profound insight. And again, in this climate where we get these sudden downloads, we get these sudden epiphanies and realizations, and very often might surprise ourselves by what we find ourselves saying. That it just comes through, that the download happens and somehow we just express whatever it was that wanted to get our attention. At the same time, Mercury is doing a turn, apparent backward motion from our point here on Earth. And it does that in gateway number 9, the gate of details. And so we have this chance for the next 3 weeks or so, up until the 27th of the month, to kind of re-examine, what am I thinking about? What's so important? What are the details that I may have raced over and I need to reacquaint myself with? It's going to go through gateway number 34, the gateway of power. What's our acquaintance with power? Do we just hand it all over to politicians, or do we live a life that's true to our own nature? Do we claim our own power? And so at the same time, Jupiter is doing a turn as well. And it does that in the gateway number 62, the gateway where we express our thoughts. We express our opinions, we express our sense of how things come together. So again, Jupiter has this big effect on our lives because it's a very expansive nature. And we kind of may recognize that we're inclined to want to say things very differently, or to express ourselves very differently. And so it's a fascinating time watching Uranus and Jupiter transit through all these gateways in the throat center and our expressions, and how we put forth in the world and how we get to relay what it is that appears to be happening for us. Come the 16th of the month, and the sun goes into gateway number 14, and this is the gate of prosperity. And what to say, it opens up this life theme of transference where we get excited about something, we can't wait to tell everybody else about it. That we just want to relay things out into other people's lives. And again, we get reacquaintance with the channel, the 1/8, this channel of creative leadership. And this is again between Venus and Uranus. Uranus is still playing in the throat center. It's in the gate of the 8th gateway, the 6th line of it. And it's, as I said, this thing of putting out suggestions or possibilities that are highly creative, not following any particular logical stream of thought or opinions or some belief system or anything. It's just breaking new ground altogether. And it's inviting us to do that. The 8th gateway is combining our intentions together in co-creativity. And Venus in the first hexagram, the gateway of creativity itself. So there's tremendous swelling of energy from the new moon in October all the way into the month and fully on in the month of November. One channel after the next, just encouraging us, break the traces, get out of the old habits, get out of the reactions, get into something creative, get into present tense, get into your community, get into the people that are with you, get into the whole vibration of this positive creativity that could take place here. Technology is running away with itself at the moment. Goodness knows what's going to come up in these next years. You know, it's total amazement. But the most important thing is that we have a life in all of this, that if technology is going to benefit or detract from our life, that we still have a life within it all. And that we stay attuned. And this month of November is so powerfully creative, so powerfully guiding us to be sovereign in our life. Like rarely do I get to see anything of this quality in the charts, that we're just being pushed. Go for it. Take another step. Try something different. Step over the bounds. You don't have to keep repeating the same old stuff all the time. You know, challenge yourself. It's a little bit like that as we get into the mid part of the month. And then there's a new moon coming up on the 19th, but I'll let Carola talk about the third quarter.
Yeah, we'll go back to around November 11th with the third quarter moon in Leo, 20 degrees of Leo. So it's the moon now has moved into a place where it's forming a positive flowing triangle with Chiron. Chiron, the huge asteroid in our planetary system that represents the possibility of humanity moving from a place of personality orientation to a place of soul orientation. And so our lives become guided more and more from our soul essence. As the third quarter moon moves into this positive, harmonic aspect with Chiron, we're seeing that possibility for ourselves. What happens when we just let go? When we just allow our spirit to guide our life? What happens when we just totally trust? And it's part of this whole process of integration of our refined values. And it's going to require some healing of some old emotional patterning, some subconscious patterns that may surface during this time, but they're surfacing for healing. So, we as we expand the light within us and we expand our consciousness, whatever within us that has been past pain or issues or misunderstandings will come up to the surface to be released, to be healed and released. So it's a time, and often when the sun's in Scorpio, it's a time of, to some degree, of some kind of healing and transformation. It's a time of healing and transforming those old subconscious patterns that, that maybe they're from ancestral input from the past or just old habit patterns or karmic patterns. But we now have the opportunity to step through and beyond the veil of what's held us to those patterns so that we begin creating afresh from who we are now and for what we know to be truth now. That's the potential of this time, and it's huge. So the third quarter moon, generally it's a time of when we take with the potential that we saw at the new moon, this possibility, and what got catalyzed at the first quarter moon, where we saw what kinds of actions we could take or what we needed to do in order to bring this to fruition. And then the full moon coming into the full light of what's possible. And now at the third quarter moon on November 11th, we're consolidating and we're saying, okay, so this is what the transformation has been about or is about, and we're fully engaged with it. We're letting go of old patterns, old ways of seeing things. We're gaining new clarity about how to align our values with new personal choices. And as we're doing that, we're also finding that Mercury is turning retrograde. So Mercury, the planet that has to do with how we connect ourselves to our environment, on the 9th, moving in Sagittarius on November 9th, turns retrograde. And so essentially when Mercury's retrograde now and all the way until, when does it go direct? The very
27th.
end of the month.
Yeah.
We're in, to some degree, there's some time now for inner work on our vision. So we're going more internally into what is that vision actually? Okay, I know there's a lot I've needed to let go of. I've been doing my healing and letting go and releasing and being open to a new possibility and an awakened way of living. But now, what is it that I need to actually produce or work on? What's the new vision? So that's what starts emerging here at the middle of the month. And that should continue on all the way until the new moon, the next new moon, which will start a whole new cycle. And that'll be on November 19th.
So I'm going to jump there at this moment in
Yeah.
time, and the new moon coincides with the same place that Mercury is, as Mercury is going backwards or in retrograde motion. So again, it's another combination, the sun, the moon, and Mercury all slotted together. In the 14th hexagram, this is a hexagram of prosperity. At the same time, the channel the 1/8 is in for everybody by transit. It's Venus and it's Uranus, and also the Earth in that channel, the 1/8, making up that channel. And people I know that have this channel, the 1/8, they question themselves in a sense, shouldn't I be performing for everybody? Shouldn't I, it's a leadership channel. Shouldn't I include everybody in this? And it's actually, no, it's so transformational that not everybody can get it. It's like I said, you build the plane as you take off, and that's not a very rational thing to be doing. You're trusting in yourself that the creativity is enough to get you in the air and to your destination. So there's that energy around while this new moon takes place in the 14, this gate of prosperity, and it's in the 4th line. And as I said, at the same moment in time, Mercury is crossing paths in its retrograde motion. The 14, the gate of prosperity, the gate of learning to embody a genuine ease in situations involving resources of property, wealth, and affluence. So what's our attitude towards wealth and property and affluence? And the 4th line where this takes place is the line that's called being secure. Personal security exists in having what you need. Right? What you want is one thing, what you need is something else. And so there's a huge disparity in the world between those that have and those that don't have. The number of billionaires on the planet, it's like you start recognizing what a billion means, and it's, I don't know, they can put dollar bills from here to the moon back around a few times, and it's ridiculous, ridiculous. And people that don't have that quantity. And so what this new moon is saying is, look, be contented or be clear what it is that you really need to sustain yourself. And Mercury's in there as well, just saying, okay, what do There's a difference between what you need and what you think you need and what everyone else tells you you think you need. And it's not in any way to say go short or go without, but it's just make sure with this new moon that you've set in place the foundation for what it is that you need, that security is there for you. And to be with it, to allow it to be. The 14 is a very interesting gate. It's a gate of empowerment in a way. It's a gate of feeling empowered because you're connected into this sense of prosperity. And what I know with the 14th gateway is that you can feel prosperous with $1 in your pocket or $1 million in your pocket. It's just an attitude. It's a connection. It's a sense of being connected into your life. So that new moon is really kind of enhancing that. As Carol has said, all these systems are going to change, these financial things and insurance things and healthcare things and, jobs with benefits and all that stuff. It's all going to change. And the whole thing is, in the end, what's your story in the middle of all of this change? Where are you with all of this? Everything on the outside is changing. Where are you? And that new moon with the 14 and the fourth line really reminds us. It's an inside job, this sense of what it is that you really need in life. So there's a bit of a challenge with that new moon. At the same time, within a day, the sun goes into the fifth line and we go into this life thing we call uncertainty. Well, if ever there was a word to be able to describe life as a human being on this planet, it is uncertainty. And to recognize, again, going back to the full moon, this beautiful planet that we have and the availability of so many different things. And the energy of transformation that is trying to get us to move into the state of bounty, bounteousness. And that inner sensation, my life is such a blessing. There may be all kinds of crazy things trying to knock me off my balance, but the reality is the possibility of an extraordinary life experience here.
And that's what you have to say about that.
It is, because the next thing I'd be talking about, the next empowering channel, which is the 2034 that happens on the 22nd. And so maybe you talk about your new moon.
Talk a little about the new moon through the astrological lens. So we have a new moon on November 19th, new moon at 28 degrees of Scorpio, as you point out, with Mercury right there with it. What's extraordinary about this new moon is that it's exactly opposite Uranus. So it's like a lightning rod of awakening is possible here with this new moon. So the new moon starts a new cycle. It starts a new 30-day cycle that to some degree, all of us will be experiencing a shift in the cycle that we've been in. The new moon ushers in a new cycle. This new cycle is one of awakening. It's about awakening to, it's like, let's see, how can I describe this? It's like you were talking about prosperity. And essentially, what is prosperity? Could you be prosperous with $1 or with $1 billion? But isn't prosperity really the assurance of knowing that whatever we need is always going to be there? And how do we know that for certain? Well, if we know that we're co-creating our life with spirit, and that spirit is abundance, it is bounty, and we're part of that creation, we're in the garden, we are the garden, then prosperity is our natural state of being. And that's, I think, what's awakening as a new understanding within the collective conscious of all humanity. So this new moon is that awakening to that inherent, innate, God-given prosperity that is about having an assurance that anything we ever need, and a lot of that we want, is just going to be there for us to manifest it into being, for us to draw it into our awareness, for us to create it. So we're saying that this particular new moon carries within it this potential, this pregnant potential for a new level of creative possibility for us all to come into that awareness that we are creative beings, that we hold within us this capacity to create the outcomes that we desire and to draw those outcomes to us. And the more that we're aware of that, and the more that we simply practice that, and the more that we align our values with those that are in concordance with what we know spiritually to be true, then the better and the better we get at manifesting that which we desire. The aspect, so we have this big, huge, flowing grand triangle aspect happening at the new moon, saying, you know, everything's possible. What is it that we choose? We're in a time of awakening for humanity. How are we going to participate in that awakening? And the one challenge that I see in this part of the month, because finally Venus is moving out of that sort of fallow place she's been in that place where we've been uncertain about our, the money flow and where is it coming from, or how is it going to get to us, or, so there's been some of that for a good part of the month of November. That begins to correct itself as ideally as there's been enough inner work and inner shift to allow prosperity to come to us in a new way. That begins to happen here at the new moon as Venus, also in the sign of Scorpio, starts approaching this big grand triangle that we've had all month long and begins to join in with it. The one aspect that we want to be aware of that's coming, and that is actually active here at the new moon, is a planet Mars that has to do with our work in the world. It's in Sagittarius, which is a great place for it. It gets very adventurous there. It's like you said, building the plane as you're flying it. But it's coming into a right angle with the nodal axis. So we're just, again, being reminded to, as our business vision starts to take off, as new ideas start to come, as we're visioning everything new, and we're seeing that it's all possible, that we can create this for ourselves, to remember to stay aligned, to keep our vision aligned with spirit, right? To not let the personality get a hold of our visioning process, or the ego get a hold of it. To really keep the vision aligned with spirit, because that's how we create in alignment with the spirit essence, and that's how we actually attract to ourselves the true abundance. So what is true abundance? It's about a lot more than money. It's about fulfillment in life. Having a deep and profound fulfillment every day of our life is possible for humanity. And we're just on the brink of discovering how that's possible and beginning to create it as a united humanity, as one world.
So the 22nd, we're going to be back broadcasting on November 22nd, but just a brief insight of what's taking place there. The sun goes into gateway number 34, which is the gateway of power, and it opens up this channel, the 2034, and the life theme we call the Sleeping Phoenix. It may sound like a funny description, the sleeping phoenix. What is a sleeping phoenix all about? It's a phoenix bird. It is a magical bird that's a massively healing bird. And it crashes and burns, another egg happens and rises from the ashes, and again, it comes back again. So it's a progression of transformation that takes place. We could say magical transformation. If I said the whole world is moving into a season, a long season, a few hundred years of this sleeping phoenix energy, of this massive shift in personal energy, this movement quite clearly into sovereignty of the individual. That is, we're going to get a foretaste of that on the 22nd, and it'll carry us for these days. This very transformational energy, the 2034, which is encouraging us always to bring our presence into the present tense, to live in the present tense, to live in reality. What does it mean to live in the present tense? It basically means we drop all the excess baggage that has no place in the present. None at all. Old grievances, old upsets, old habits, repetitive stuff. It goes. That is the flavor of these years coming. There's a lot of baggage that has to be put down for all of us. We've all been conditioned in so many different ways. And our reality is going to be drawing us more and more into the present tense. So let's just say be ready for that. And come the 25th of the month or 27th of the month, Mercury turns again. Turns in gate 43, the gateway where you got these insights, these downloads, these possibilities.
Breakthroughs.
I cannot overemphasize the power of personal transformation that is right from today, the 25th of October, all the way through November. The personal transformation that's possible for all of us, whether we like it or not, whether it's comfortable or not, but we're going to shift. All of us are going to shift, whether we like it or not. And I'm just saying to myself, to really embrace it. We're going into times that are unfamiliar. What do? Have to be clear in ourselves. That's the bottom line with all of it. Trust in yourself and see what comes about.
We're going to be back with you again on November 22nd. And we'll be taking you through, at that point, we'll be taking you through the remainder of November. But just to give you a little bit of advance information about what's happening next astrologically, on November 27th, which in America is Thanksgiving Day, we'll be having the first quarter moon in Pisces. We still have this huge, big grand triangle, this flowing energy that's involving 5 planets. It's actually involving more than 5 planets because there are other points. You all knew astrology and I could just speak astrology to you, but there's so many different aspects that are happening at this time that are all pointing to a time. It's like a chrysalis. It's like the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. A time of, I'm going to call it blessed time of transformation. I think that's what we're moving into. So we will be back with you. We'll be talking more about the latter part of November, the very end of November then. And we wish you a wonderful month, a time of profound transformation, healing, and awakening.
Yeah.